Welcome to what people call the upper house.
Yep. Article 1, Section 3, the Senate. The Senate of the United States shall be composed of 2 senators from each state, chosen by the legislature thereof, for 6 years, and each senator shall have 1 vote. And we've got some blue text here.
Yeah, overthrown by the 17th Amendment, which some
Yep.
people I want to repel and go back to having the state pick them.
Yeah. I mean, some people are in favor of all kinds of things that limit the voice of the people. Um,
Yeah, again, we'll get to this when we get to our premiere in January, but again, I think this is a holdover of the articles where they want the state themselves to have a voice.
yeah, which I disagree with. The states are not people. And honestly, I think that there are some people in some purple, let's say, states who wouldn't like the senator they got if their governor got to appoint senators, if their state house got to appoint senators. I am curious about what would happen in Texas, but that's part of my perpetual cruise bewilderment.
Yeah, like I think we mentioned this in the uh I forget if it was the Constitution or the Amendment one, that the Lincoln Douglas debate wasn't for the people to vote for him. It was for
It was for the legislature, yeah. Um, Most of the people listening to Lincoln and Douglas debate could not vote for Lincoln or Douglas for senator because the vast majority of them, far more than 99%, weren't members of the legislature, didn't have a voice. The theory was that they would campaign to their members of the legislature to say which of these two guys they wanted as senator.
or they would say they tell the people, I guess, vote for this party in your state house so they'll appoint me.
Yeah, it was trying to get the people to have any say in who their senator was. Basically, senators were an aristocratic class under the original language of the Constitution. They were appointed by the state house, which meant they were pretty much all people that the legislature members would already know. You were not going to get one of my senators, Patty Murray, who I believe will no longer be president pro tem of the Senate, alas, but Patty Murray first ran for the Senate back in the 90s and was told repeatedly that she would never get her seat because she was just some mom in tennis shoes. And she has been in the Senate longer than I have been living in Washington.
So until not anymore, but so she was literally the fourth in line.
Yeah, fourth in line. I don't actually. I have to look up how President Pro Tem is chosen and if that varies by party. But if it doesn't, and it's purely seniority, then she will remain in line between or behind the Speaker of the House.
And before the whoever the Secretary of State will be.
Right, right. If something catastrophic happened, and this is not me advocating for it, this is purely a hypothetical to detail the structure of our government, but if something catastrophic happened and took out the president, the vice president, and whoever the Speaker of the House is going to be, which could be Mike Johnson, could be someone else, we don't know, Patty Murray would be our next president.
From back to the thing is, from what people on YouTube were saying, that back in the day, they if you didn't vote for the way your people want you in the state, they could be they could like, you know what, we're not keeping you anymore. Get out.
Well, they couldn't recall you before your term.
Yeah.
So it's not like it was an automatic, we've changed our mind. They still had to wait the full term.
Unless they got the House and Senate to impeach you.
Right. And getting the House to impeach is actually kind of difficult. We have only had one bipartisan impeachment of a president in our entire history. Impeachment is often extremely partisan.
Was that Johnson?
That was Trump number 2.
Oh, Clinton.
Trump number 2 was the only bipartisan impeachment.
Oh.
The second time, Mitt Romney and a handful of others, or not Mitt, but Mitt Romney, I believe, actually voted for kicking him out. But a handful of Republicans were actually on the side of impeachment and on the side of removal from office. Not enough, but some. So yeah, it's not like having the senator chosen by the legislature would mean an automatic removal from office if you didn't like what they were doing. You would still have exactly as much ability. In fact, you would have less ability because you'd have to hope that everyone else in your state agreed with you and voted in representatives that agreed with you. Whereas now you can say, I think I will vote for the mom in tennis shoes for senator, and she will take over for whoever was our senator before Patty Murray was. I don't actually know because I didn't live here.
So you don't think if still the way the House wouldn't have appointed the tennis shoe mom?
Yeah, I think that putting the Senate out of the popular hands, which is what it currently is an inherently undemocratic idea.
Yeah. From what I've heard about this argument for doing it back is they say we basically have 2 House representatives now. That's their argument.
That's a silly argument. That's people who don't know their Constitution. But I've discovered that a lot of people don't know the Constitution as well as they think they do. My favorite story, and I've told this before, and I will doubtless tell it again when we get to that amendment, is the guy I knew who asked me when they put the part about well-regulated militia in the Second Amendment. He didn't like my answer, which was 1789. He was a Second Amendment nut, and he did not actually know the text of the Second Amendment.
Do you think it happened later or earlier?
Yeah, he thought it was a recent addition because he mentioned his right to bear arms. I said, well, are you part of a well-regulated militia? And he looked at me blankly. And I hold up my pocket Constitution, because, again, I am that person, and showed him the actual text of the Second Amendment. And he said, when did they add that part?
Yeah, we'll get to that a while down the road. But, yeah, Second Amendment.
It's like,
Unless they had law very recently, you think it'd be a little bit earlier.
Like, he thought they changed the text, and it was like, sir, do you know the process that goes into... It's called amending the Constitution. So, yeah, I once had some people try to get me to sign a petition about, I think it was Citizens United, and they asked me why Obama, who was president at the time, hadn't thrown out the Supreme Court justices who'd voted for it. And I was like, well, because he can't. It's a lifetime appointment. And they said, since when? Oh, don't try to amend the Constitution without reading it. It's not that long, I promise.
Yeah, we'll get to that, the lifetime appointments later, and we'll get to Article 3 eventually.
Yeah, no, it's later. I'm just saying that usually the arguments from these come from people who have not read the thing, and it's not very long.
Yeah, but besides the Supreme Court lifetime thing, this here, 6 years, is the longest
yes
you can be in an office. At least in one term, not counting multiple terms.
And the idea was it's long enough to let you sit in the Senate and get a feel for how our government actually works, which is part of why I'm opposed to term limits, side note, because it does take time to understand how government works. That's why politician is a job. Well, it's one of the reasons why politician is a job, because you do have to increase your skill set. And the theory was that the Senate would be sort of a calming, balancing influence because those people had been around for a long time and they understood the system and what worked. And that's not always true. Not naming names, but it's not always true. But that's the theory behind the longer term for senators. Also because it is the American House of Lords. This was going to be the aristocratic class. It was going to be a permanent job for these people.
Hence why I get to the point why at the beginning, the aristocrats of the state chose the aristocrats of the national government at that point.
Exactly. That was the whole point of the legislature of the state choosing the senator. It was choosing one of ours.
But you're real fast. You're against term limits for these people, but you're still for term limits for president, or not?
No, not really.
Okay.
There are some people who I don't want to have that many terms, but also I don't want those people to have one term. So,
Right.
I'm not a fan of the term limit. I think it comes from a fundamental misunderstanding of how government works.
Yeah, we'll get to more of that when we get to Article 2, and then later on that
Yes.
amendment. But right, I think that's anything else to say about this little section.
No.
All right. Oh yeah. Oh, wait, one more thing. I think we talked about it earlier, but 2. No more, no less. Always
No
2.
more, no less. This is the one that's based on direct versus proportional representation. This is supposed to be the voice of your state. That's why you have a congressional district, but you don't have a Senate district. I mean, state Senate, sure, but for federal office, you do not have a Senate district. You vote on both of your senators, not at the same time, on a rotating basis, but you do vote for 2 senators, and they represent your entire state, in theory.
Yeah, 2 years. Imagine if they did all of them every 6 years.
Yeah. Yeah, in theory, this would also, I mean, if we did, vote from your district, this might let the senators get to know their states a little bit better. I think both of my senators are from Western Washington because that's where our population is. Let me double check, but our recently re-elected Maria Cantwell is, she's originally from Indiana, but she lives in Edmonds, which is in Western Washington. She moved to Seattle in 1983. And Patty Murray, not Patty Smith, not Patty Lupone, was born in Bothell, which is a suburb of Seattle. So our senators are from Western Washington, and theoretically, if they voted from home, they might, travel to Yakima, travel to Walla Walla, whatever, get to know the eastern side of the state as well as the western side.
Yeah, I don't know much about our new senator. I don't know I know who's going to replace Vance at this point.
That's up in the air, I'm sure.
Yeah, but I know Marino. I know about the new guy going to office in January is, like I said, Trump likes him. That's all I know about him, and he wants to pass a national abortion ban.
Ugh. What a charmer.
But yeah, I'll get to this later about again states things. They're all about let states decide, and let the states decide the opposite of what they want them to decide.
Yeah,
they're like, let's go national.
Yeah, they really don't want Washington to look the way it does. We have, we voted in gay marriage 15, 20 years ago now.
Even before the Supreme Court thing.
Well before the Supreme Court. We actually voted civil unions and then full marriage. So we have said twice Yes, we think gay people should have legal partners.
So at least Washington, if the Supreme Court decides, it's back to the states again, forget what we said 10 years ago, your state was still protected.
Fun fact: Jim Nabors, who played Gomer Pyle on the Andy Griffith Show, got married in Seattle when we legalized gay marriage. A lot of people came to Washington to get married, and he was apparently one of them. So, yeah.
I forget if Ohio had civil unions or marriage itself. I doubt they did. I doubt they had marriages.
I think they were. No, it was Iowa where they legalized gay marriage, and everybody went, wait, what? We also had very large billboards near the state border with Oregon, because my mom lives in Portland, Oregon these days. We had very large billboards when they struck down Roe v. Wade saying abortion is still legal in Washington. Like, the Republicans do not want Washington to look the way it does.
Yeah. Let's just
But states' rights.
Hopefully, yeah, like I said, it's states' rights unless they like disagree with you. Like, let's take the side. No, you take the side wrong.
Yeah. And the guy who won the governor race here, also Democrat, also won with a just ridiculously large percentage of the vote. So we're not changing anytime soon, but they really want us to.
Yeah, I wish Ohio would change, but that's a different story. That's why for a different time. All right.
Yeah.
We'll see you in the next part.